And I like to call this group of 7 products Shichinin no Samurai. So, and I use of course, that movie and that picture inspired the U.S. production of this Western, The Magnificent Seven. And I use this analogy, this example, because the tagline here, the subtitle, says they fought like 700. So these 7 samurai or 7 cowboys fought like 700. And I think the analogy is very appropriate when we think about tablets, smartphones, mobile PCs, when we consider the connectivity, apps, connected services, software. There are well more than 700 use cases, aren't there? In fact, almost an infinite number. So the Magnificent Seven is really important. When we look at technology's Magnificent Seven, this year they will account for 81% of the global consumer technology wallet. And as you can see, that share of these 7 products has been growing steadily over the past year, but we appear to be slowing down a bit. And I think we'll probably hit a peak this year at 81% because we have a number of new, innovative, and disruptive technologies that are just now beginning to enter the global marketplace. And as you saw from the slide, the vast majority, not only this group of 7 products, the Magnificent Seven, but smartphones, with 40% of global consumer tech spending attributed to that device alone, really bears closer examination. And so when we look at unit shipments, we can very clearly see that in 2015, among the 1.5 billion devices that will ship this year and be sold around the world, we can very clearly see that the developing market sector, that developing hemisphere, is responsible for the vast majority of the growth, 3/4 or 75%. So no question which markets are really starting to drive that global tech spend vis-a-vis smartphones, and China in particular. So here's more reason to pay attention to very large emerging markets when we're thinking about future business opportunities, simply because of the population size and because consumers there are becoming more affluent. China representing roughly 1/3 of global smartphone volume, so that's about 500 million units this year alone. And probing deeper with this storyline, this narrative of smartphones and the importance of China driving that global demand, when we look at it from a brand perspective, there are some interesting stories here that there is a rising tide of domestic brands in China that are really starting to put pressure on some of the global leaders and incumbents, brands like Apple, Samsung, Sony, and Xiaomi in particular is one of the more popular brands. And it's important to mention that a lot of these brands are not necessarily just content to compete in China. No, they have global ambitions. And so Xiaomi, as one example, recently received a new round of funding that will ostensibly be used to power a global expansion, not only in the Asia-Pacific region, but also in the U.S. market as well. So time will tell, but we already see other brands like Huawei and so forth spreading their wings and competing globally. But an important trend to note in the Chinese market. But what about all the other products in that constellation of devices that we call the CE industry? Well, here we see a steadily declining share of that consumer wallet. And this is being driven principally by consumers in these developing or emerging tech economies really leapfrogging a lot of these purpose-built devices that you can see here, like camcorders. And they're prioritizing their purchases, which bear in mind their technology budgets are a lot smaller than ours here in Japan. So many of them are buying technology products for the first time, and that first product that they'll buy will be a smartphone. So they're leapfrogging a lot of these other devices that we've owned over the past several years and we have a robust experience with. They're entering the market at really that cutting edge of technology. And countries in these emerging sectors are making investments in communication infrastructure as a means to foster business investment. So Countries want to be connected, consumers want to be connected, they're prioritizing around smartphones, which leads to a diminished opportunity for a lot of these purpose-built devices. And to close this chapter, looking at a lot of the global data, I just wanted to cross-tab and plot the Magnificent Seven group of products across the range of 7 regions. And what does that look like? And what I really want to articulate here is how dominant that group of 7 products is, no matter where we look in the world, but their overall contribution within those regions can vary widely. So case in point, Western Europe at 64% represented by that Magnificent Seven group versus over 80%, 83% in fact, in places like the Middle East, Africa, and emerging Asia, China, India, and Vietnam, elsewhere. So again, consumers prioritizing in these other regions very clearly, as you can see by the breadth of the green bar, on smartphones. For 2 reasons. They're buying for the first time in many cases, they want to get connected, and they don't have really a huge technology budget. So when it comes to buying a given technology, they're gonna go with what has the most utility and what's going to help them not only in life and business, but so just deeper context around the global consumer wallet and how we see opportunity developing around the world. So I think we've established that innovation is everywhere, across the breadth of the CE universe, certainly, and across the globe, reaching new consumers, new markets, no matter where we look around the world. From Shinjuku to the Serengeti, we see brands competing. But I want to just take a moment, as Gary did in his opening remarks, to just acknowledge the history and the tradition of innovation that Japan represents. Because the truth is, a number of the Japanese brands are still global leaders. We think about these iconic brands, and they're still generating a lot of opportunity and are responsible for a lot of the growth that we're seeing worldwide. And another point I want to make is that I think that we often think about innovation in the context of cutting-edge technology, and that's not always the case. There's no shortage of innovation in very mature and developed markets as well. And I'm going to use a couple examples